Welcome back to another instalment of New Zealand's Bird of the Week, where in this video I will be talking about the fantail. Very small and very energetic birds that are notable for their tolerance around humans and their acrobatic hunts when hunting. I hope you enjoy. Best known for their friendly sounding chirps and acrobatic antics in the air, New Zealand fantails, or as referred to by the Maori name as Piwakawaka, are some of the most well known and common birds on the New Zealand mainland. They are very small, with half of the 16cm length being their elongated tails, making them look like pom-poms with wings, and in spite of being 2cm longer than sparrows, are 4 times lighter, about 8 grams, which does help regarding their agility. Birds are typically a dark grey through grey-brown, with them having white feathers above their eyes, which from some angles can make them appear quite grumpy, and their tail fan being a mix of black and white, which when folded out makes them look very distinctive, certainly very different looking to most other birds. Both sexes are similar in size, although females are slightly smaller with paler plumage, although making this out can be quite a challenge due to their manoeuvrability. Some birds are quite different in their appearance, with up to 5% of South Island birds being black in colour, sometimes up to 25% in some populations, something which is much rarer in the North Island, and completely absent from the Chatham Islands. Mixed coloured pairs are known in the south, though the courtship of different birds in the North Island are rare to non-existent, with any birds that are spotted have been seen to have been harassed, chased and bullied by the resident pied birds. White, leucistic birds, while incredibly rare, are also known of, and are very ethereal looking in how they appear, with the lack of grey around their face really showing how large their eyes are. Their tails, which give them their name, not only help in display, making them look quite a bit bigger and flashier, but also helps in increasing their agility, being able to quickly change direction in mid-flight and snapping up dozens of insects in any given session. Birds will deploy a range of strategies to do this, with there being 3 main methods. The first is hawking, whereby fantails perch near an open area to scour a long distance, and then flying into a given insect swarm to snap at many of them at once. Flushing is employed when in denser vegetation, with fantails flying around plants to disturb resting insects, and flushing them out of hiding to better target them. Birds will also hang around both larger birds and people, where they will follow their movements in order to pick up food disturbed by their movements and not their own, which leads to some fun encounters, giving fantail are very tolerant of people, and will readily fly up to, or even landing on us depending on the bird's confidence, with little hops, never still nature, and wings ever folded back behind them, giving them a very cute look. Birds can be very vocal, except when it is very cold, and will give out regular single-note cheeps in a number of situations, either when foraging or alarmed. Fantail also play a strong role in Maori mythology, being quite the characters in them. Their large eyes and erratic flying behaviour are said to have been attributed to an Maui, who features extensively alongside them, squeezed them for not revealing the whereabouts of his ancestor, Mahuika, the fire deity. They are also portrayed as companions too, with them being enlisted by Maui alongside several other forest birds to act as lookouts when he tried to defeat Hinenua-Tipo, the goddess of death. Maui believed that he could eradicate death by entering through her, pathway of birth, to put it in the most innocuous of terms, disguised as a worm, and attempted to enter while she was sleeping to catch her off guard. Maui warned the fantail to keep quiet so that he could reach the womb, though the fantail laughed at his absurd request in their typical chirpy fashion, thus leading to said goddess waking up being alerted to Maui's presence, and subsequently crushed and killed him with the obsidian teeth that were present down below. Because of Maui's inability to kill death, fantails have since been considered to be responsible for death to still be present in the world, and so if one enters a dwelling, they are thought to be bringing a message or news of an upcoming death from the gods to the people, though some interpretations have considered them as being messengers of new life as well. Along with this, if a bird enters and is chirping, that is said to be a sign of bad news, although one that is quiet can be seen as something positive. Breeding-wise, birds are very vigorous in this regard, with their onsets depending both on the region and the time of the year, usually breeding through August to March in the North Island and September through January in the south, with warmer, more stable weather helping with this. Pairs make compact, cup-shaped nests, usually in the forks of trees or branches, which are mostly made up of moss, fibre and bark, with both parents helping in their construction, and when finished is slightly smaller than a tennis ball, and usually has a kind of tail, giving it the look of an upside-down pair. Birds can have clutches of up to 3 to 4 cream eggs which are grey and brown spotted, with their incubation periods being about 2 weeks and both parents looking after them. Chicks, once hatched, are very hungry little birds and are fed in many cases every 10 minutes, about 100 times a day, although their mortality rate is decently high because of factors that will be talked about soon. Fantail do well mostly on forest edges or margins, whether they be rural, suburban or urban, being found in almost every habitat in the country, aside from the dry open country of the mountainous Southern Alps and barren dairy fields of the East and South Island. Chicks rears early in the breeding season are vigorously driven away by their parents' territories afterwards as their next broods hatch, with later birds that are with their parents for longer, up to a few months in some cases, being far more resistant to said changes. While being among the few endemic birds in the country that have been able to adapt well to an environment greatly altered by people, in many parts of the country probably being even more common in fact, birds can still get hit hard by numerous factors. Because of their small size, they are especially vulnerable to cold snaps and storms, which can not only outright kill them and destroy their frail nests, but also limit their insect supply, as they too are either killed by the conditions or hunker down out of sight. Birds have been known to communally nest together, as seen here in these rather funny images, something which is only reported of from the southern South Island, which does get lower temperatures than elsewhere in the country, where hard frosts are quite a bit more common, though they're not particularly social otherwise. When it comes to predators, the native moorpork is their prime threat, with them rarely capturing adult birds, but being very effective in predating on nestlings, and interestingly from research that's been done, a good 2/3 of the fantail taken were aged between 7 and 9 days, and so it may well be that moorpork target and harvest them once they reach a desirable size. Fantail are however not always the victims, and sometimes take a leading role when a mixed group of birds mob a moorpork, with them moving in closer than any other known species, and sometimes even striking them on the head in dive-bombing attacks, and will even do so after dusk when moorporks start to have the advantage in terms of visibility. Both species of cuckoo will also feed on their eggs, and rats and stoats can predate on 60% of their nests, even before a full clutch has been laid, with the former even visiting and revisiting nests still under construction to see when they finish, so that they can then move in. Birds are even vulnerable to plants, with parapara, also known as the birdcatcher tree, snaring them often on their sticky ponds, which lure fantail in due to insects also being attracted to them. The impact of introduced mammals is however apparently not as much of a debilitating issue for these birds as was thought, as no other recent rivals to the country that have arrived recently like silver eyes and grey warblers are now less common in Zealandia than they were before the predatory fence and plantings were conducted there in 1999. This appears to be down to the more deeply endemic birds doing better in dense forest areas, which Zealandia is now much more dominated by, whereas fantails and the like are more generalist in terms of where they can be found, frequenting a lot of bush margins and open areas birds like robin and riflemen would stay away from, not to mention their numbers likely being more influenced by food supply than predation. And with that, I thank you for watching this instalment of New Zealand's Bird of the Week. For next time, you'll be able to vote for the Chatham Island mollymawk, rare albatross that have a very restricted range, breeding only on an isolated rock stack known as the Pyramid. With that, I'll see you next time, whatever that may be.